Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Monday, July 19th, and I'm Blair Kirkhoff. Olympic week has arrived. A year later than scheduled and without fans in the stands, the Summer Games are about to commence in Tokyo. Opening ceremonies are Friday, but events in some sports like soccer and softball begin earlier. This is happening as the world continues to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Some athletes, including gymnast Kara Aker of Kansas City, have already tested positive. Aker, by the way, is fully vaccinated. There is no asking if the games should happen. They are. And TV ratings for the Olympics are always high in Kansas City. But there's something of an uneasy feeling headed into these games. On today's show, star columnist Vahe Gregorian, who's covered several Olympics, joins me to discuss this global event, what we love about the games, and what concerns us this time. Let's get started. You didn't come in here expecting to write a column today, did you?
No, I thought I would be just speaking with you for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, our usual 4 or 5 hour podcast. No, we were going to do this earlier, but it didn't happen because you wrote a column about the Olympics, and I wanted to talk to you about the Olympics on a lot of levels. Maybe the first of which, let's establish that the opening ceremonies for the Summer Games are Friday in Tokyo, and some competition begins earlier. I know softball begins actually on Tuesday. The women's soccer team, USA women's soccer team, plays on Wednesday. So, yeah, some team competitions begin before the opening ceremonies. But this Olympics is already unique in that the 2020 Olympics are happening in 2021, and there will be no fans in the stands. And of course, this is all because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the delay and the empty stands. So, Vahe, I wanted to chat with you because you've covered. Name them. How many Olympics have you covered?
10.
10 Olympic Games.
10 Olympics, 6 summer.
Okay.
So first, the way I've looked at it is the first Summer Games I've missed since 1992.
Wow. So you have a you have a depth of knowledge about the Olympics that few possess. I know you're going to miss being there because even though fans can't come, media is allowed there. But even if you had gone to cover them, it would have been the most unique Olympics that you would have ever covered. How are you feeling about these games? I'm a little uneasy about it all. I love the Olympics. I want to talk about that a little bit too later. I mean, I absolutely love the Olympics. It's one of the few sporting events where my wife and I sit on the couch and watch sports together, and both enjoy the competition and most of the sports. But just because of the nature of things, the pandemic, there doesn't seem to be universal approval of even staging the games. That these are a little different.
They are, and it is the whole mixed bag of things you're describing is very much sort of the pulse of what I feel too. I've come to think of the Olympics as this grand global celebration, right? And it really is. And part of the magic of the Olympics is the ability for people to really physically come together, and that is entirely what this can't really be in ways that we don't even know yet. But we do know that we're getting not exactly early harbingers of some chaos ahead, but kind of a powerful statement of what this is going to look like just based on the developments of the last few days, with including our own Kara Aker of Gage Gymnastics in Grain Valley, a replacement gymnast testing positive despite being vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated. And it's just the microcosm of how hard this is going to be. It's been understood that, first of all, we should note that the IOC has not mandated vaccination. There's reasons for that I don't think have been very well articulated, but the reasons seem to be, I think, starting with the notion of accessibility for all, that at one point was maybe not seen to be possible, and then a fairness question. But the ripples of that are
indefinite. I mean, maybe not infinite, but indefinite. And I don't think we have a real feel for the sort of wildfire that might ensue here. This wasn't maybe really where you wanted to go with that opening question, though. I think, you were thinking also in terms of what the Olympics means and
well, what it means, what it's meant, and how different this one is going. We project this one is going to be. You make a great point that it is the world coming together for sport. And I read something today, an Olympian from Japan, I think he's a soccer player, who's upset that fans aren't going to be allowed in the stadiums for a couple of reasons. It's like, first of all, well, why hold the games if they can't be held in front of spectators? And the other point, which I think is a pretty good one, is taxpayers have paid a lot of billions of dollars for Japan to hold these games, and they're not going to be able to enjoy them in person. Yeah, and to say nothing of how some bills are going to be paid. I haven't really thought through all the implications of that, but at last reliable estimate I understood was the games were going to cost $26 billion to put on, and which is part of the reason why I guess we're still having the games, despite what this very genuine Japanese competitor would say. So it's the trick of the whole thing is that none of these experiences are going to be what the spirit of the games is supposed to be, right? The athletic experience, you'll have the competition, and I suppose there'll be a chance at some purity of the competition specifically, as long as we don't have just waves and waves of people disqualified, which that's maybe a big caveat. I hadn't thought much about this till today. I'm kind of all over the map, but everybody's flying commercial here. You're exposed to the general public. 205 countries, 11,000 athletes, converging in a place that has a 28% vaccination rate, and 100,000 new COVID cases a day in Tokyo. Yeah, still in a state of emergency, which from a smart thing you sent me, Mike Tirico, writing for Peter King this week. I mean, it explains a little bit that the state of emergency maybe isn't martial law either, but it's not what you'd hope it would be. So there's going to be the sound of one hand clapping in this a little bit, a little hollow, and I tend to think about the Olympic experience through a fair amount of different perspectives, right? Certainly you start with the athlete, what it is, what they've worked for often a lot of their lives, and you think about the fan in that country, what it means to the people of that country, right? To welcome the world. I remember, I've been lucky to be places like Australia in 2000, where seeing people weeping on the beach as the torch went by, because at last, the world is back in Australia, and I think, there's a thin line between just sort of the sheer nationalism and pride, but to see it in Athens in 2004, all these things, and I assume that the passions are different, but as deep in Japan out of those who wanted the games there. But the problem is now they're dealing with a public that's very divided on even having it. So all these different lenses on it are conflicting, but none of them is fulfilling, right? They're all a little blurred. I think about it also from an athlete's perspective. I would think that the athletes want the games to happen, right? I mean, they set up their young lives to participate in the Olympic Games, and I'm old enough to remember in 1980 when the United States boycotted the games in Moscow, and how devastating that was to the American Olympians who could not participate because of the war in Afghanistan and the Soviet war in Afghanistan. So that was what was at stake here if the games were not going to be played. I mean, if that was so. the IOC did, I think, prudently canceled the games last year. Everything was being canceled last summer, right? All events or delayed. Certainly schedules altered, and the Olympic Games were among them. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, a year from now, we should be coming out of this, and we should be okay. Gosh, every other sporting event has been held, right? Every major championship, even the couple that weren't, that didn't happen last year, like Wimbledon, they got that in, and people are in the stands again. But the Olympics are going to happen without the fanfare, pretty much. It's going to be. Did I hear maybe some piped in crowd noise?
I didn't hear that, but I wouldn't be surprised. But even things like, I read this the other day, that the awarding of medals they won't be hung over your neck. They'll be put on a tray in front of you for you to put over yourself. That does not quite seem like what, I congratulate myself on this. That's right. Look, I guess that, speaking of thin lines on things, right? It's a thin line between what rightfully ought to be sort of mocked and seem ridiculous, and what is like, well, I guess I better do that. Maybe that's helpful in some way. You figure that's less face-to-face exposure, regardless of masking, and I'd like to think that those on the medal stand won't need to be masked at that time. But I don't know. Some of these things I haven't really had a chance to drill into. I mean, I don't know for sure how they're going to do the opening ceremonies, for instance. It's my understanding from what has been said on NBC in these last couple of days that we'll see a parade of nations. Well, I don't know anything about the protocols on that. I don't know if it's the diminished numbers. I can't speak to the specifics of this, but I do think that they've changed some just travel rules in terms of like how long before your competition you're allowed to go into the country and how soon after you need to leave. So all that sort of throws that off.
The opening ceremonies are such a joyous occasion.
Yeah.
And probably, if not the highest rated program during the entirety of the Olympics, among the highest rated nights. I'm sure NBC counts on that to be a blockbuster night for them. Of course, it won't be shown live. It'll be an edited version to be shown in prime time on Friday here, but it's just not going to be the same. It won't be the same with an empty stadium and a parade of nations. That's always fun. Guess the nation. Looking at the flag.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to appear.
I don't either. But it reminded me of this. Like for many years, in the rhythm of covering the Olympics, Wednesday would usually be the day that at least the United States would announce like the flag bearer for the delegation, and that was always an exciting story to get to write.
Right. What an honor it is for that person.
And I guess there'll be such an announcement in the next day or two, and but I don't know what the format will be and how it'll go over. So that's there. I mean, I have a really sort of a profound sense of sadness about this that is really probably only eclipsed by my genuine worry about what's going to happen. And I'm trying to think of is it possible we're just wrong on that, and that by these things happening right now that they're flexible and nimble enough and have enough science and information and personnel and resources at play to adapt to what we've even seen now. But I just don't know that answer, and I feel like there's been sort of a willing suspension of disbelief to just, it's going to work out. I mean, I get they have these playbooks, but we've seen, authoritative people, point out the gaps in them, and just they're not conscious enough of the right things and how transmission works.
they're going to be tested constantly, right? The athletes constantly.
Certainly daily, at least as I understand it. And I know in the case of USA Gymnastics, I think they produce a saliva test every morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last year, as events were being reimagined, the NBA got through its season in a bubble, and the NHL got its playoffs, through it in a bubble. Other sports, baseball played mostly without, I guess all the games last year without fans in the stands. So events happened without. There's nothing on this scale though. It's 11,000 athletes. Is that what it is?
Yeah, about that.
Coming from all over the globe with different percentages of vaccinations available. I mean, I guess we're all hopeful that everybody that can get vaccinated will and has.
I do. The one point worth making on that is that you're right, at different access points in different countries, different continents even. But about 2 months ago, the IOC, got on not just a campaign, but made it clear it had the resources to vaccinate any would-be Olympian.
Okay.
Now, to what degree that's happened, I guess we don't know. We can hear Thomas Bach say that they expect 80% will be vaccinated. I don't know where he gets that number. Now, theoretically, they ought to have that number if they're administering some. Mm-hmm. But they probably haven't administered all. And we know from what we've researched here in the U.S. that different governing bodies aren't tracking it within their own teams. So I don't get how and I'd like to think we have one of the more sophisticated systems and certainly the resources. So we don't even know how many people on any team have been vaccinated. So I don't know. Just the thing about this episode that we're talking about today, though, it really gets me is that Kara Aker is vaccinated and tested positive and sits at the cusp of all this. And look, the reason that the USA Gymnastics maybe is it'll be one of the most prominent sports, and Simone Biles is one of the great athletes, if not in some ways recognized as the greatest in some ways that we'll ever see.
She is the focal point of the Olympics.
She is. I mean,
you're talking about who's going to carry the flag again. I'd be surprised if it was somebody other than her.
Yeah, she would be perfect for many reasons, and that's part of the beauty of this, that her story is all encompassing in a lot of ways. So, but now the reason this, I think, is getting so much media attention nationally and internationally is that's a gateway to Simone Biles. Like, okay, to what degree, they got on a plane, they all flew together.
Right.
Okay, and then they have trained together. The reports are a little different from USA Gymnastics than what they had sort of told us at first, but they're riding on buses together. Now, theoretically, they're all masked, and they're sitting on separate parts of the bus. And it is funny, though, if they weren't getting ready to compete, I don't think I'd feel like, they're just traveling in a bus together. But there's this. There's the Olympics right here. So,
right.
So maybe it's a different standard than we think of when we're just going to the office or even traveling together.
Right. We've both been on airplanes. Masked, fully masked in airports and airplanes and.
But I don't have a gymnastics move named after me.
No, I don't. Are you sure?
Wait a minute. Named after. Yeah, that's right.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some of the happier occasions at the Olympics. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeat KC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Back with Vahe Gregorian, we're talking Olympics, which start this week with the opening ceremonies on Friday, some competitions beginning before that. Vahe, you said you covered 10 Olympics. I've never covered an Olympic Games. I'm jealous of you to having covered so many. I'll never forget, though, Sam Mellinger, our buddy and colleague, describing how he felt watching Usain Bolt win the 100 in London in 2012 in the, shattering world record, and just the excitement that he felt in the stadium. One of his all-time great moments covering sports. From your Olympic experiences, do you have something like that just gives you chills when you think about it?
Yeah, and that is one of them, though. And what I bet you can freeze these kind of moments in your head from incredible events you've been at, where it's like a little bit of a freeze frame. I can feel the goosebumps. I can feel like the surge in the audience, the surge in him. It may have been one of those things, not quite like Sam and Therese Paylor falling out of their chairs watching a Mahomes pass, but it may have been one of those things where I found myself getting up in my seat as it was happening. Not in any way consciously, just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I've been really fortunate to get to cover the Olympics at all. Once would have been amazing, and it just sort of sequentially worked out at the Post-Dispatch. We had a long-time Olympic writer starting toward retirement around the time I was coming aboard, and I went to Atlanta for the first Olympics, and that's like Michael Johnson and Kerry Strug and the emergence of USA women's soccer and USA softball and there was so much going on, and I don't know that I don't have the photographic memory that you do. I bet you if you'd been to these things, you'd be able to tell me what you did each day. But the collage, kind of the montage, whatever. I mean, I just suddenly think about Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and Usain Bolt and. There's Muhammad Ali in the stadium, and Giselle walking in Rio, but the other thing that you take away is that there's those people that define sports in some ways, right? The finest athletes of our times, but you become in those countries. You become conscious of the experience of the nation, the host nation, and I remember Kathy Freeman, I believe her name was, the Aboriginal runner in Australia. Winning, I think it was the 400, winning and sitting down on the track, and I get goosebumps from that. It just her taking her shoes off, and I won't be able to do justice to what it meant in Australia, but you could feel it then.
I think she lit the flame that year too.
She did. I think she did light the flame too, and which was extra cool. And then the other thing that really drives anybody that's gone to the Olympics as a reporter, the feeling is your locals, the local athlete.
I was going to bring that up because that's something that you've done such a good job with your Olympic coverage, is you find the local athlete and tell their story, and you bring it home to the reader in your region.
Well, because it becomes the one thing that no one else is going to care about the way that the local newspaper cares about the local athlete. And maybe those aren't the stories that everybody remembers from the Olympics if you're watching, but I would bet you that most reporters that go to the Olympics value that as much as they do that moment to watch Usain Bolt. I mean, I'll always remember, I use this example a lot, but I'll always remember sitting in the stands at archery with the mother of Zach Garrett from Wellington as he won a silver medal. And I'm sitting with the mom as he's winning a silver medal. Why? Because the star and we cared enough to go spend time with the family before that and got to know them. And then it became we're in this adventure with you thing. And that's pretty cool. I think that's something we all like to do in this business. And I could rattle off 20 names like that I don't mean like any of them to trivialize any of them by saying that, just that each of those Olympics experiences has been highlighted by the time with local people.
And in the Sunday Star, we had a list of I think we covered most of them, if not all of the local competitors who are scheduled to participate in the Olympic Games. I'll just mention a couple of them, one of whom is interesting on a couple of levels, and that's Bubba Starling playing for Team USA's baseball team. How cool is that? And I'll mention another one, just a track and field athlete that you and I have gotten to know a little bit over the years, and that's Courtney Frericks, the steeplechaser from Nixa, Missouri, but spent most of her all of her undergraduate career at UMKC, and learned to basically be a runner at UMKC. Yeah,
I remember you were sort of the first to get to know her, and because of that, you reminded me that even when she went out to New Mexico, she's ours.
She is ours. She's ours.
And what a delight she is. And I had both experiences with her. Got a chance to follow in your footsteps and do a story previewing her in 2016, and then met up with her after her race in Rio, and now I'm supposed to get her on Thursday while I'm driving from Hoover, Alabama back to Pensacola. She's supposed to be calling, I think, from Tokyo through there's some kind of milk company that's sponsoring her, so I just have to make sure I mention that she used to work at a milk booth back in Nixa, and then I'm good for talking to her about whatever I want to talk to her about.
Well, time difference shouldn't matter either. That should go smoothly.
I will pull over for that interview.
I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to ask you about something else that has been brought home to me in the last month or so, watching a lot of the world's soccer competitions, the Euro, the Copa with Brazil and Argentina, and now the Gold Cup with the USA. And that is, I think the international soccer competitions among nations bring out a nationalistic feeling in the people of those countries that I never really see in the United States. And our buddy Sean Goodwin, who covers soccer for the Star, mentioned on a podcast last week that he's from Liverpool, and England losing the Euro final to Italy drove him to tears, and he had difficult sleeping, and the path that England took to get to the final brought him just such joy as a soccer fan. And I don't think USA soccer is men's soccer anyway is on the level of we know it's not on the level of others that just haven't had the international success. So my question to you is, have you found over the years covering the Olympics and just observing sports that does the Olympics is that our nationalistic sports feeling? Is it wrapped up in the Olympic Games in a way maybe other countries, I don't want to say don't have, but because the USA is as dominant as it is, it'll win the most medals. It'll win the most golds. It'll win the most medals. I guess, do we feel that way about our Olympic team the way Sean Goodwin felt about his England soccer team, or anybody feels about their international or their national team?
That's a great question. It's a really great question. I feel like my first instinct and probably more thorough instinct is yes, that's where that goes for us. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I think you can make a case that it's because for many of the sports that we value, I think this is right. This is the marquee environment for it. Whereas, let's say soccer per se, you can flip a coin, I guess, maybe about whether actually you probably don't even flip a coin. A World Cup, for instance, is going to be more meaningful than an Olympic gold medal in soccer, I guess.
Yeah, it would, I think.
Right? I mean, and I don't think we know the nature of I don't think we bear the feeling, or whatever you would call it, of the nature of a international competition off the Olympic charts the way we do in the Olympics. I mean, I don't know what would I don't know what the right parallel would be with the Euro Cup. for instance,
Yeah.
for us? What would it be?
I don't know. There isn't one because I'm not even the FIBA World Basketball Championships are that way. My sense is because the most popular sport in the United States isn't an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
That we channel a lot of our emotion to the NFL teams that we follow, that we cover, and there is no nationalistic feeling about the NFL. You pull for your team,
right?
And it's just different in that way. And look, the nature of sports in the United States is, not just the NFL, but baseball and NBA, NHL, MLS. We're all fans of the teams in our cities, and there is no USA-ness for any of that.
I think that's right. And then think about this too. I may have said some version of this before, but I think, you ask with any of these sports, what's the highest stage for any sport, and certainly Olympic baseball, for instance. So we've got football, NFL's out of this equation. I think you can make a case. People, as much as I love that Bubba's an Olympian, I think you can make a case that people aren't captivated by Olympic baseball.
Correct.
In the United States. It's because it's not the best,
the pinnacle,
and highest pinnacle, right? So now basketball easily translates to the Olympics because of the way people are consumed with the NBA. But that's because it's NBA guys, I think, as much as anything else.
And LeBron's not playing, and some of the best aren't playing.
Yeah. So if I think I understood the broader question right. I mean, I suppose that if I did understand that right, that lends itself to why we're so focused on the Olympics, right? The other aspects of the Olympics, I mean, that's our international thing. That is our, not only, but surely the most prominent, that captures the broadest audience of Americans, right? Obviously, women's national team in soccer is, quite an attraction, but I'm not sure everybody's into women's soccer.
Right, especially when it's in a non-World Cup or an Olympic competition, right?
Right. If it's not that, not that it's not deserving of this peak that it has, and it is, but it is kind of all things to all people, right? Or has a chance to be all things to all people when it's the Olympics.
I agree. I think my sense of USA pride in the Olympics would be if Simone Biles doesn't win the all-around, right? Or if USA Swimming doesn't dominate its competition, I would be pretty upset. I don't know if it moved me to tears, but the way a soccer team losing might, or Italy winning brings joy to those folks. But
well, you're making me realize that maybe here it just translates to anger.
That's right.
Not tears.
Right.
Just fury.
It's fury and social media snark.
I'm not sure that's wrong.
That's right.
I'm upset. I'm mad.
That's right. Right. Okay. Well, I just wanted to get your sense of that because I think the United States is unique this way, that we don't have a national team that dominates on the world stage on a semi-regular basis that we all get behind as a nation.
All our hopes are in that.
Yeah. Like we see in soccer.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think but it's not a question I'd really thought about before. I like the thought.
Well, I'm going to enjoy the Olympics. Fans in the stands or no? Well, no. But I will enjoy the Olympics, and I hope everyone stays healthy.
Yeah, I do too. And it is interesting just to think about how they're having to, likely how they will contour camera angles and stuff that used to be on point to emphasize the crowd. Things like that. I'm sure they've had some practice in the last year and a half. But it'll be interesting to see how it's packaged.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. It's and it's always different when the time zone is when it's that side of the world, the Eastern Hemisphere, right? And I just remember in 2000 when Maurice Green became the world's fastest human. He did so at like 4 a.m. here, inconveniently in Kansas City. But most of the events, I guess, will be inconveniently timed for for us in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah, and again, we'll be thinking in terms of real time, not how it's. I haven't really studied how it will be, disseminated through TV later, but we'll be doing our darndest to at least follow it in real time. The task ahead remains whether we can engage with our locals from afar and things like that. That's not really maybe a whole nother podcast, but it is an interesting dynamic ahead to see how we can do.
KansasCity.com is your home for at least your local Olympians. So, Vahe, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Blair.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Vahe Gregorian for stopping by and talking Olympics. Links to stories about the Olympics and Vahe's column can be found in the show notes and on KansasCity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the online version of the Star Sports section. You get all the stories that appear in the print editions of the Star, plus additional stories that appear only on the website, and of course they appear first on KansasCity.com. After 3 months, it auto renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. Here's how you get it. You go to KansasCity.com/SportsPass2020. That is KansasCity.com/SportsPass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional national news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. If you're having trouble hunting down any of those offers, you send me an email, bkirkhoff@kcstar.com, and I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode.